October the 11th, 2023 will be a date that people across this world will never forget. It was the date Dr. Reiner Fuellmich, the international lawyer, was abducted in Mexico and kidnapped to Germany. And we're going to get into details, but I can't tell you how excited I am because he's on the phone in prison. Dr. Reiner Fuellmich, I love you. How are you?
Well, under the circumstances, I'm in pretty good shape, I'd say, both physically and, as long as my brain still works, and I think it does, I'm pretty sure that the good news will be that I believe very soon I'm going to be out of here. Finally, after 2 fucking years and 9 fucking months.
God damn, that's what we need to hear. We need to hear that. And it's just so emotional. So many things. I came to see you in prison in January. You looked in very good shape. You gave me a message to the people. You said, tell the people that I am strong. And I gave that message. I was able to come to you and bring you messages from, friends, David Icke, Kathy O'Brien, Dr. Christian Northrup, Dr. Lee Merritt, Sasha Stone, and so many others. It's been incredible. The support, there are millions of people across the world, Dr. Reiner, they stand outside the prison, they do marches around the world. There's free Reiner Fuellmich t-shirts. It's just incredible. But tell us, how are you today? How are you doing? And what is your routine in the prison at the moment?
Well, I just got off the phone with my wife. She's still in Mexico, and I kept advising her not to come back because Germany, at this point in time, is totally destroyed. It is probably clear even to those people on the wrong side of the fence, even to many of the correctional officers here, that the government is about to implode any second now. As far as I am concerned, as I said before, they wake you up at 6 in the morning here during on weekdays, and then you have an hour to talk to fellow inmates and have breakfast. I usually take a shower in the morning. Then they lock you up again at 7, and for 2 hours, and they let you out to do your rounds. They call it a free hour. Once again, be with the other inmates and fill up on vitamin D, for example, if the sun shines. Then they lock you up again until 11. Then you get lunch, which doesn't make any sense, but nothing makes any sense in a prison. And then they lock you up again from 11 until 4:30 in the afternoon. You get another 2 hours of talking to your fellow inmates. I usually spend the time, just to give you an idea, I usually spend my time reading the mail, answering mail, and sometimes I write my own postcards and letters. Most of the time, however, I write answers to the postcards and letters that I get and send them to my friend Andreas in our team, who then processes the letters and postcards or emails, and then makes them into emails or postcards and letters. And of course, since I'm more or less in charge of my legal defense, I write briefs or drafts for briefs that my attorney then puts their letterhead on and files them with the court. So that's why I'm saying the time wasn't right for the last, let's say, 2 years and 9 months. I probably could have had the best lawyers in the world and tens and dozens of these lawyers, but it wouldn't have helped. But in the meantime, I have learned to understand that it's not just your legal professionalism and not just your legal knowledge and your understanding, which I think I have, of how these judges and prosecutors work because of my more than 30 years of experience as a trial lawyer. But there's a third piece that makes probably all the difference, and that is, of course, I wouldn't have imagined as an attorney I would ever say this, but that is, of course, spirituality. It is this higher power, this what I call, because I like the American Indians view of the world, the great spirit that connects us all, connects us with nature, which is the only real reality, and which is life. And that is probably crucial in all of this.
Bless your heart. And I know that some of those beliefs there can have given you strength and given you love and given you hope. And it's just incredible. I want to take a step back to what happened when you were, I want to say, Lord, because obviously everything we put out is also evidence for when you are released. We had your beautiful wife on, Daisy, Papp, and I, your lovely wife Inka on the channel, and she told her story of when you were Lord to go to get your passport renewed. An arrest was made, but I think it's better if I hand that part to you, and then I can tell you what Daisy and Inka and I said, because I don't want to get any of the details wrong. So what happened? How come you were arrested?
So that's a very, very important question, because it goes to the core of my legal defense, which has now been turned into my legal attack on the system. As we now know from the contents of the prosecution's case file, but also from the dossier, which one of my attorneys got from the German Foreign Intelligence Service, BND, as we now know, this was an abduction by the German government. There was this one guy in Mexico City who works for the equivalent of the American FBI, called BKA, and he kept reminding the Germans who wanted him to arrest me or have me arrested. He kept reminding them that that is impossible, because if they wanted me arrested in Mexico, the Mexicans would only do this if I had either entered the country illegally or committed a crime in Mexico, which I obviously hadn't. And he kept reminding them that they should go through the process of an extradition proceeding, but they didn't want to do it. And now I know, of course, why they did it. They didn't want to do it because if I had gone through such a process, I would have gotten a fair hearing, and immediately, once I was shown the arrest warrant, I would have been able to tell them this is a hoax. This is all wrong. The allegedly illegal loans that I took were completely legal loans, completely in line with corporate law. Plus, they were all in the files of the Corona Investigative Committee, transparently listed, and there's nothing wrong with them. Plus, I had more than enough money to pay back the loan, but of course, that never happened. I was never allowed to see this arrest warrant until I was finally officially arrested in Germany. So what happened is this is all in the file. What I'm telling you is all in the file.
Yeah.
Inka and I were lured. That's what it says in one of the emails. We were lured to Tijuana under the guise of there being problems with our passports, so that they could have me arrested. That's what it says. Have me arrested. They, meaning the Germans, could have me arrested in Tijuana. How did it happen? Well, Inka and I believed that there was a problem, despite the fact that one of our really, really good friends told us, "Don't do that. This must be a trap. They're going to try and come after you." But we thought, nah, that can't be. Well, because I didn't even have the faintest idea that it would be my own government plus their domestic intelligence service, which is really a domestic terrorist organization, as we found out.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying this because of my case. So I didn't have the faintest idea that this is what would happen. So once we arrived in Tijuana, at the airport in Tijuana, Inka got out first because she was sitting way in the front. The flight was overbooked. She was sitting way in the front of the plane. She got out and then took a seat. But she did see that there were a number of people who she thought were police. I was in the last row, so it took me a little longer to get out. And as soon as I walked through that, I was going to call it a finger. As soon as I got off the plane, there were these 6 or 7 police officers, which I didn't recognize as police officers. But Inka then told me, "Look, they're not wearing boots or anything. This is uniform. Plus, they were armed. And then they arrested me, and I asked them, look, where's my wife? And they said, okay, if you want to take her with you, she will come with you too. But they didn't want her. They were only after me. They were fine. They were friendly. Explained to me, none of them spoke German or English very well, but they did explain to us that they didn't know why they were arresting me, but that the people at the migration authority, that they would be able to talk to us and explain this to us. Mm-hmm. But they were a 20-minute car ride from the airport. So they drove us there full speed, sirens blaring. And then we finally got to the Mexican Migration Authority in Tijuana, and there were one and then two officers who were talking to us. And we believe that the first one was the director of the agency and the other was his deputy. They too were really, really nice, apologized profusely even, and obviously they knew me. I mean, from the media. From the alternative media. But they didn't say that at first. But they kept telling us that they didn't really know what to do with us, but that they would send us to see the doctor at first. So we went to see the doctor. He realized that we were still alive. We came back, and in the meantime, they had received a fax, which I didn't really notice, but Inka told me much later that it was a fax. It was one of these older faxes on thermo paper. And once they got the fax, they told me, look, we would never have arrested you. We don't have a reason to arrest you because you did nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. The Germans, they kept repeating, it is the Germans in Mexico City, that want you, and as soon as you straighten this out with them, please come back. And I'm not sure if these officers or the other one, the honorary consul, later told Inka this, but when you come back, we're all going to have dinner together and we'll have fun. So they were very, very nice. And one of them asked me, is it okay if I take a picture of you with my private cell phone? And I said, no problem. Go ahead. Took a picture of me, sent it, which I realized much later, sent it to a Mexican newspaper. And together with that picture, they published an article which explained that the international lawyer, Reiner Fuellmich, who had fought against Deutsche Bank and others, and who had made a name for himself as one of the lawyers who were in the resistance fighting the corona measures, that the Germans wanted Reiner to be arrested and taken to Germany. So there it is. It was the Germans. They used the Mexicans, put pressure on them to arrest me and make it look as though it was a deportation, which it wasn't. Yeah. Because even if a deportation is when the Mexicans want you out of the country, an extradition is when the Germans want to get me extradited from that country. But it wasn't, because there was no extradition proceeding. And as they both explained to us, and probably in the meantime have also explained to, our friends from the United States, it was all a fake arranged by the Germans. Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely harrowing and sickening and just absolute outrage from everybody across the world when it happened and during and up until this very moment. Now, your beautiful wife, Inka, was also arrested, put into a cell, and when you watch her broadcast when you are released, it's really heartbreaking, her holding herself together and then just remembering what happened and the harrowing experience of being in this cell or with all these other people whose doors are slamming, and she didn't know where her husband was. And of course, you're on a plane to bloody Germany. She's stuck in a Mexican prison, and they arrested her, held her to make sure that she couldn't get you a lawyer on the German side. Those sneaky bastards. So they got to put you in prison, didn't they? Because there was no one on the other side for you, right? Yeah, well, they put her in prison. They didn't arrest her. but they kept her in detention, and they took her cell phone. Why? Because the Germans had told them, don't let her make any phone calls, because if she does make a phone call, and if she does get an attorney, even when I'm already in Mexico City, I was in Mexico City and I spent a night in one of their huge detention centers, no showers, nothing. But even if then Inka had gotten me a lawyer in Mexico City, he would have immediately gotten me out of this mess, because obviously they didn't have anything on me. The Germans, not even the Germans had anything on me, only that fake arrest warrant.
Yeah. People are probably wondering because we haven't mentioned the fact that you've been long term, well, since March 2020 in particular, fighting against COVID. You set up a company, ICIC. You fought against the beast system as a major international lawyer. You are very much a threat and they tried to shut you down. This is the reality of the arrest, and they threw a fraud charge on you, which has not been proved, or has been proven to be incorrect, hasn't it? It was proven to be false.
Yes, it's all false. Well, it all. Well, I have been a trial lawyer for both in Germany and in California for over 30 years now. It all started in 1993, and my law firm in Germany, we were. I had 17 colleagues working for me, plus, I don't know, 12 or 13 paralegals, secretaries, security people, bookkeeping, et cetera, et cetera. I had always, my firm and we had always, right from the start, represented consumers and small and medium-sized businesses. I had, for the first few years, up until 2001, I was teaching law at the University of Göttingen, then later at an American-German university in Hanover, and I think in the mid-1990s at the University of Tartu in Estonia. That was a United Nations, no, an EU project. And over time, I specialized because I had once been a banker, not a lawyer for a bank, but I had once been a banker for Deutsche Bank, and I spent a year. I was working in. I spent a year in Tokyo, and that's when I realized that the expression "bank of the criminals," which Deutsche Bank had gotten, was well deserved, because this is the bank of the criminals. On the other hand, there are very few banks that are not criminal. But I realized that this is the financial system is evil, evil, evil. Then I left the bank, came back to Germany, became a lawyer, and both in Germany and in California. But I also kept working at the university. I think I'm the only person who was ever allowed to simultaneously hold a job at a university and work as an attorney. And because of that experience, I decided, and at the university, I was special for 15 years. I was in medical and pharmaceutical law. So, and I knew many of the people who are important scientists and doctors in that field of medical and pharmaceutical law, because I had organized many of the international conferences that my boss, a very famous international court lawyer, wanted to hold. And that's why I knew many of these people. And that's when Corona started in 2020. And I immediately thought something is not right. It doesn't make any sense. Things don't add up, even though I didn't fully understand what was wrong. And that's when, as you just suggested, that's when in early 2020, or rather in March of 2020, Inka and I were living at our ranch in Northern California. That's when I realized something needed to be done, and I started to post the first few, like 5 or 6 minute statements in which I kept telling the people that you have to look, because this is a basic law. you have to always look at the other side as well. Audiatur et altera pars. That's a Roman saying. It means you must always also hear the other side. And there's always at least two sides to a story, but only one side of the story. There was this narrative which was so fake. I kept doing this from the ranch, and then I realized, because Inka said, no, we have to go back. You have to do, use your legal competence and start a kind of conference over an extended weekend or so. Call all your friends. At that point, I wasn't in touch with Dr. Mike Eden yet, but I knew all of these people. So she said, call these people. Then you hold a conference over an extended weekend, and then the government will surely apologize because of the mistakes they're making. Well, I had no idea that this was not restricted to Germany. It was very soon, obviously, something that was worldwide thing that was going on, at least in the Western world. And that's when after we came back to Germany, that's when we decided not to do just a conference, but we decided to do what the government should do, what the German Bundestag should do, and we started the Corona Investigative Committee.
Yeah, it was incredible. And for those out there that may have not come across you yet, where have you been? You were the handsome, lovely man sitting on a long boardroom table and having really in-depth discussions and really facing off at the governments and the pharmaceutical companies and questioning the ingredients. And I mean, it's just been absolutely incredible, the work you've done, and to be, arrested for that and kept in pre-trial detention. Is that the correct term?
Yes, for 2 years and 9 months. Normally, it's no longer than 6 months.
What does that mean, pre-trial detention? We know it's a dirty trick to keep you there, but explain to the layperson what that means, please.
Well, in my case, your first question leads directly to the core of this case. This is a political case. We know this for a fact because it's in the file, in the prosecution's case file, but also in that dossier with the German Domestic Intelligence Service and the equivalent of the FBI, the BKA, did on me. It's a, 12-page dossier or so. And very, very telling, I would call this a smoking gun, is page number 1 of the prosecution's case file. Instead of there being the which they were coming after me for, like, murder or manslaughter or fraud or whatever, it was just one word. That tells you the whole story. And throughout the file, it German Domestic Intelligence Service writing directly to the DA's office in Göttingen, which is where my German law firm was, and suggesting that they invent a crime with which they could charge me with. For example, they suggested fraud or violation of a fiduciary duty, which is a catch-all kind of thing, invented by the Nazis, by the way.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite work, because that case ended up on the desk of probably the one not corrupt senior prosecutor of the DA's office in Göttingen. Her name is Reiner. She looked at the file and did a very thorough preliminary investigation, and then decided, nope, there's nothing criminal about anything this guy's doing or any of the others are doing. There were, apart from me, there were three others rather, 2 of them idiots and 1 of them someone who at least knew how to talk. And she said, there's nothing criminal about this, and what all they're doing is they're trying to educate the public about the legal failures of the system and how they would hold the system, even including the judiciary, responsible for these failures, for basically canceling all the entire so-called basic rights. That's what it's called in Germany, basic rights of the Constitution, suspending all of them. And in the meantime, of course, this is a perfect data after this question, by the way. In the meantime, of course, we know that all of these measures were absolutely 1,000% illegal. I'm not the only one who's saying this. There's lots of other people, including one who is a highly, highly regarded former president of the German Constitutional Court by the name of Professor Hans-Jürgen Papp. He, right from the start, he said, something is wrong here. We need a thorough legal investigation of the corona pandemic or plandemic. And just today, or yesterday, I'm not sure, he once again came out and said in public, it is the established political parties that are a danger to democracy in Germany. The established political parties. This does not include the one party, the one opposition party that makes any sense. That is AfD, the Alternative for Germany. He was only talking about the established political parties. That is the ruling parties, SPD and CDU, of course, but all of the others are included in this, not the AfD. So ultimately, this is a political case because they wanted to shut me up because of my corona activities, because of the three questions, basically, that I wanted answered when we started with the Corona Investigative Committee. How dangerous is the virus? Well, there's a lot of people out there who now believe that there are no viruses. It's exosomes or something else. But that was the first question. How dangerous is the virus? Whatever it was no more dangerous than the common flu. Even the WHO agrees, and with Professor John Ioannidis of Stanford University, who said this already in 2021 or 2022. But even the WHO, as corrupt as it is, even they agree. So it was no more dangerous than the common flu. How reliable is the PCR? It is not reliable, but they used it in order to create cases. They misused it in order to create cases that didn't exist.
Yeah.
PCR test was invented by Professor Kerry Mullis. Great guy, funny guy. One of the smartest people I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen his videos. I haven't seen him in person because he conveniently died shortly before COVID started. He's the one who kept telling. He's a Nobel Prize laureate. That's the prize he got for the PCR test. And he kept telling everyone, even during AIDS, which was sort of the dry run for COVID, he kept telling everyone, including Fauci, this is great for scientific purposes, but it is not good. It cannot be used for diagnostic purposes. You cannot use it in order to check for infections. It is impossible. And they misused it. Fauci and his German counterpart, Drosten, they deliberately misused it in order to create cases that didn't exist. And the third question was, of course, how dangerous are the anti-corona measures? Well, as we now know, the lockdowns destroyed many small and medium-sized businesses so that, Amazon and all the others could take over. Didn't quite work. And, of course, we don't know how very, very damaging the mask mandate for children. The social distancing was for people in general. And, of course, we know that the so-called vaccines, which were really, as we know from people like Professor Alexandra Orion-Court from France, they weren't vaccines. They were not even genetic therapies. They were just genetic experiments, and they were designed to kill, just like the AZT cure, alleged cure for AIDS, was just designed to kill and make money.
Yeah. It's horrendous and it's all out. Now, I want you, please, to tell the people about what happened and how many months of torture you had to endure at the hands of these people.
Well, yeah, that's That's really crazy. I'm now at a prison where I get along with pretty much everyone, not just the inmates, but most of the correctional officers, because times have changed, and many of them either have themselves suffered adverse effects because of the shots they got, and they want to know what happened to them. So I'm not saying they believe everything I'm telling them, but they listen. At the other prison, that was in Rostov, which is near Göttingen, that's really a concentration camp. And I'm not kidding you. It's run by two people who think that they're psychologists. One of them has a doctorate in psychology. I don't know how she got it, but but she has it. And I confronted her with what they were doing to me, and she said, "Yeah, you're right. We've never done this with anyone here, but that's the way it is." And I looked at her and I said, "You're not a psychologist. You're a psychopath."
Good
And,
for you.
but it didn't change anything, of course, except that I was transferred to Bremervoorde a couple of weeks later. So what happened there? When the judge who was in charge of the panel of judges that was going to sentence me to 4 years and 2 months in prison, when he finally realized the whole trial started in early 2024, and on May the 3rd of 2024, he finally realized that this was a complete hoax, that as I said before, that the arrest warrant plus the indictment, and of course also the criminal complaint that was at the basis of this. Here's the thing. The aforementioned senior prosecutor Reinicke, the German domestic intelligence service, basically, she didn't use these words, but basically she said, "Shove it." And she archived that case. But 2.5 months later, the domestic intelligence service had two of the former members of the Corona Investigative Committee, one of whom had always worked for them, which I was totally unaware of. They turned them, and they had them write a criminal complaint. So they wrote it, and based on this completely fake criminal complaint, written basically by idiots, but they had the support of the domestic intelligence service. Based on this, a prosecutor who was transferred from the town of Hanover to Göttingen, so that the senior prosecutor, who was really in charge of this case, would be bypassed and wouldn't do the same thing one more time. They had this guy transferred. He was on probation in Hanover, transferred from Hanover to Göttingen, changed the case, the number of the file, or the number of the case, so that he wouldn't be in charge anymore. And now he was in charge. He didn't investigate. This is only 2.5 months after she had decided that there is no case. She had basically thrown the case out and told the domestic intelligence service to shove it. Not in these words, though. So she was bypassed. He didn't do any investigation, nothing, even though the senior police officer who decided that the criminal complaint looked really, really strange, because one of the things that the guy who had written it is that he said, "I was threatened by Reiner. He was threatening me with a Winchester rifle," which is as stupid as it can get. So, which I wish I had used it, but no, I don't even have a rifle. But the prosecutor didn't follow up on the advice of the senior police officer, and of two other prosecutors who had agreed that we need to interrogate the 3 signatories of the criminal complaint, plus my former co-host, who was basically the T for the deep state, who had told the deep state that I was going back to the United States and that I was stealing money, even though I wasn't stealing money. And that's how it all started, how this second time around started. But back to your question. May the 3rd of 2024, the judge, the presiding judge or chief judge of the presiding over the panel of judges, five judges, he finally realized that I was on to him, that I was no longer believing that they had made a huge mistake, but that I was on to him, that I understood that I was fighting against criminal judges. And that's when I took over my own defense. I wrote not most of them, but many of my own briefs. And that's when he realized that he would have to do something in order to take me out of circulation. And that's when he ordered me to be subjected to really extreme measures of white torture, this concentration camp-like prison in the west of near Göttingen. And these measures included like 6 months of solitary confinement. This is totally illegal. 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most, but not 6 months. They put deeply disturbed inmates right next to my cell. The first guy, I think he was suffering. One of the correctional officers told me this. And by the way, even the correctional officers, 2 of them said, "Look, if you need us to testify once it comes to this, we're going to testify in your favor, because what they're doing to you has never been done to anyone, not even the worst violent criminals." So they placed these poor individuals right next to the first guy was a paranoid schizophrenic who started yelling in the middle of the night, then smashed his chair and his table into the door, destroyed his entire cell, including the sink. There's a tiny little bathroom there. And he started yelling. He started talking in almost like, it was almost like a scene from, the movie Psycho, when Anthony Perkins talks to his own mother, and then she talks to him, and it's him using her voice. So that's what kept me awake at night, so that I wouldn't be able to prepare for the trial the next day. When they finally, because even the wardens, even the correctional officers didn't want this any longer, when they finally put him in a psychiatric hospital, there was a new guy. This time, a very dangerous guy from a black African from one of those war-torn countries. He tried to attack everyone in his sight, so eventually he was locked up too. But at lunchtime, they would always let me out so that I could pick up my lunch. But at one point, they let him and me out at the same time. So this guy started to attack me, and I was ready. I'm not kidding. I mean, I was a soldier for quite a while, and at any rate, I was ready to kill him because I thought this guy was going to kill me. One of the officers stepped in and said, "Look, Reiner, I'm Dr. Fuellmich, you do have to file a criminal complaint. I'm going to testify on your behalf in your favor, but this cannot go on any longer." So eventually this guy was, I don't know where they put him, but the last thing I could see through my window is that he was put on one of those, carts. If you've seen Silence of the Lambs, when Anthony Hopkins put on one of these cards and rolled away, and that's what they did to him. And so that's how they tried to keep me awake and unable to defend myself. But it didn't work. For some reason, it didn't work. I was doing even my rounds. My daily 1-hour rounds. I did this all by myself. And when one of the other inmates, many of whom I had helped writing draft brief for their attorneys or motions or whatever, or even, just a request to allow them to talk to their mother on the phone. Many of whom I had helped, and they were kind of cheering me on. Don't give up, and things like that. They were beaten up by the security officers who were ordered by those 2 insane people, the 2 directors of that prison. They were ordered to beat them up. One of them almost lost an eye. And I advised them too. Later, after this all ended, I advised them. There was a brief interlude of 2 weeks or so when I was allowed back into business, when I was once again allowed to talk to the others. And that's when I advised these two people how they could, because of the damage that they had suffered, how they could get damages from the state of Lower Saxony, which employed all these people. And that's basically what made them decide to lock me up again, and that's what they did. The worst thing they did is when my sister told me that my mother was about to die and that she probably only had 10 or 14 days to live, and that I should make sure that I would be able to visit her one more time, they refused to let me see her. And when she did die, they even refused to let me take part be at her funeral. So this is something I'm not going to forget. And this is something that I'm going to make them pay for with everything they have.
You know, Reiner, it is so hard hearing the horror and the torture and the abuse that you have suffered. And as you're saying, when you were in the first prison, which there are questions about why you were sent there, but it was a violent, high security environment for a very sophisticated international lawyer, a husband, a family man. Just to hear what you've gone through and how you've been treated. And not to see your mother. I mean, the abuse is horrendous. And then they wouldn't let you see your wife. And it just gets more shocking. The whole litany of abuses that have been carried out illegally, criminally, against an international lawyer who was standing for humanity, who was fighting for humanity. And this is how they've treated you. And you're still in prison now, and you're talking to me from your prison cell, just in case people don't realize that's what we're doing here. Dr. Reiner Fuellmich is in prison, in his prison cell, on his phone, speaking through a friend's Zoom so we can broadcast to you, the world out there. The I don't know what you'd call them. I've got a few choice words, but there is someone who has made sure that you stay in pre-trial detention and has not allowed you to even speak to your wife on the phone. They took away Zoom. They took away everything. They have tried to crack you, break you, and destroy you over and over and over again. And your wife, knowing that she's suffering in Mexico, she can't come to Germany to see you. When I came to visit you in January, I remember saying to you, God, I mean, we've been friends for years, but I remember saying to you, God, I feel so guilty that I'm sitting with you in prison, visiting you, and your own wife can't come. And, you know, when I spoke to Inka as well, when me and Daisy and her hung out a little while ago, she was like, you know, she knows that if she comes, she'd be arrested too. And what the two of you have endured, and it is not to be skipped over lightly. This is very important that we lay this out for people to understand that there should be such outrage, you know, and that you were kept in that isolation unit with two corners, two cold walls, the coldest cell on the block in isolation. What did you do? You spoke out for humanity. That's what you did. How was it that some person was able to, the prosecution apparently was able to prevent you from having phone calls for how long and not see your wife on Zoom? How did that even happen, Reiner?
Well, it was once again Göttingen, the court in Göttingen, the presiding judge. His name is Schindler. Schindler's List. What an irony, right?
Oh my God.
He's the guy who ordered this. He's the guy who, when he realized, I actually told him in open court, I said, I'm going to come for you. I'm going to use everything I have, everything I know about court law, and I'm going to come for you. And I am coming for him right now, right at this point in time. But I'm going to tell you about it later. But he's the one who also ordered that all my communication be banned, that I shouldn't be able to talk to anyone except for my attorneys, of course. And but I couldn't even talk to my wife. I was able to talk to her once or twice a week for 20 minutes, but not really talk to her because all of these phone calls were monitored by one of the correctional officers. So I was not free to talk to her. That was very hard. It's not, well, it was hard on me as well, but especially hard on my wife, who had already, she was all alone, all by herself in Mexico with our two dogs. She was lucky to have two of our really good friends who had sold everything in Germany because of the country being destroyed, and had decided to build a new home down in Mexico. So she was 5 minutes away from them. But she was basically alone, and that's why it was probably almost life-saving, I should say, that Daisy then decided to visit her in 2025, but stayed for 2 months. But it was this judge, and we know lots and lots of things about it. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but this guy is not going to get out of this in one piece. He will lose his job, he will lose his pension, and maybe worse. But he will not get out of this in one piece. Why am I saying this? Because the long and the short of this is an abduction for political persecution. This is extremely important because the German Constitution says in Article 16 that Germans must not be extradited for political persecution. It is not just illegal, it is unconstitutional. Now, if you must not extradite anyone for political persecution, then it's even more illegal to deliberately circumvent an extradition proceeding and do an outright abduction for political persecution. And this is what happened. Because of this, I have a claim for damages under court law, which is my area of expertise, which is what I've done for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be a blowhard, but no one in this fucked up country knows more about tort law than I do, at least as a lawyer. There's probably some professors of law who know a little bit more than, but I'm pretty good at this. So I filed a civil complaint against these guys, plus a motion for a preliminary injunction, because this is indestructible. Based on this, the thing is that German judges, both at the Supreme Court and at the German Constitutional Court, they have over the past, let's say, 50 years, they never really cared how a criminal, and I'm talking about real criminals, usually violent criminals, how they got them to be in a German court. They didn't care if that person was abducted. And you may, arguably, there are some cases in which it probably didn't really matter. I wouldn't say that, though, because if the state itself turns into a criminal in order to go after criminals, then it loses all credibility. But, cases like Adolf Eichmann, who was abducted by the Germans and the Israelis in Argentina and then had to stand trial in Israel, that's arguably a case where probably, you might say not so bad. But in my case, I hadn't committed any crime. They were purely out for me because of my corona investigative work. And in this case, even though both of these courts don't really care, they do make an exception for what is called, both of them call, extreme outlier cases. Extreme outlier cases. And that's what this is. For an abduction for political persecution, that's an extreme outlier case. This automatically leads to a final prohibition to prosecute and a final prohibition to incarcerate me. This is on top of monetary damages. This is part of the claim for damages that I filed, to immediately let me out and immediately stop the proceedings, throw the case out, obviously. This is going to be very difficult for the courts to decide because they're all afraid. They're all afraid. We have our team of defense lawyers, we've had help from active lawyers and active prosecutors from behind the scenes, of course, because they don't want to be seen working with us because they're all going to lose their jobs. But times have changed, and the, let's call it the good powers, in, I don't know, I'm not religious. I'm not into organized religion because it's all about control and making people do things that they don't want to do. But I do believe that there is a higher power. I happen to find the North American Indians' view of the world very makes a lot of sense with, you know, the great spirit that connects us all with nature and with each other and the universe. So this force that's out there has become so much stronger, and most people do seem to sense it. Most people on our side of the fence, at least. The other side, I don't know. But most people seem to sense it, and I get it. I gather this from all the cards and letters that I'm getting. And this is what is going to turn things around. And it is so visible because a couple of weeks ago, I quoted a Russian economist by the name of Kirill Dmitriev. And he said, well, we made it possible for Keir Starmer to disappear. Merz, the German chancellor, is next. And he is next because he has fully lost everything. Nobody wants to go. Nobody even wants to be near him. He's toxic Merz now. When he had to throw one of his more important people in his political party under the bus a couple of days ago, he had to do it because he bought a child. He's not the only one, but he bought a child in the United States. He's gay. He's married to a gay person, obviously. Now, this is nothing against gays. It is just that it doesn't make any sense for anyone to buy a child in the United States when it's illegal in Germany. And when he kept telling everyone, when he was speaking in Parliament, that he was totally in line with this prohibition to do that. It basically, it is, sorry. There's others in the government that have done the same thing, and I'm very worried about this. But he had to throw this guy under the bus because this scandal had almost the entire party erupt and call for his resignation. And then he thought, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to rearrange my administration. And that's when everything came apart. This happened over the last couple of days. The person whom he wanted to be the new Secretary of Traffic, someone who I know because he's a member of Parliament and comes from Göttingen. He, at the very last moment, he decided, nope, I'm not going to do it. But Merz had already fired his predecessor. Now, he looked like an idiot. He either didn't know what he was doing or he doesn't have his party under control. So he needed someone else for the job, and he chose a white-haired mummy of sorts. But the next guy, who was supposed to be his new Secretary of Health, 54-year-old economist, had a year ago told the public on public television that he would never want to be Secretary of Health because he doesn't know anything about the job. He's an economist, he said. I should stick to my guns and be an economist, but not be a Secretary of Health. Now, when his boss, Merz, called him and designated him to be the next Secretary of Health, he had to stand before the cameras and the press and explain to them that he was deeply in awe of his new job, but how much he loved it. He almost burst into tears. I thought he was going to run home to his mother so that she would trouble him and make him feel better. But it's so bizarre what's happening right now. It tells you it's beyond any doubt whatsoever. This whole government is coming apart, and the Russian economist Kirill Dmitriev was right. He is next. And I don't know if in England, the guy who is now the Burnham guy, if he's going to last much longer.
Well, you know, also across the pond there in America, you've got the little rat man, Fauci, who was part of engineering and manufacturing the AIDS virus, which has been proven. Just go look up Dr. Judy Mikovits, moving along from AIDS,
Yes.
Ratman Fauci is on the stand in America for crimes against humanity, and you can see in his face the guy is burning. I'm like, we're looking at dead man walking here because, I mean, you could understand if when Fauci goes to prison that they would put him in isolation like they did you, that they wouldn't let him have access to outside people because he truly is a serial killing genocider. Him and Bill Gates and others of this beast system will go down in history as the worst, the Lenins, your Trotskys, your Hitlers, major serial killers, and yet here you are. But things are changing. I think he'll be the next sacrificial lamb before Bill Gates. But I wanted to take a step back to honor all of the thousands and thousands and countless people that send you letters and cards and postcards, and they stand outside the prison and they sing to you on your birthday, and they gather every month. They hold up signs on the street. I've seen videos across the world, Reiner, of people doing marches in your name. I mean, how do you feel about that? And what do you want to say to those people?
This is the most incredible thing that I've ever experienced. I am, of course, more than grateful to all of them, all of the people who write to me, all of the people who participate in these vigils that go to the German consulate in Den Haag in Holland, or The Hague in Holland, or in Canada or Australia. It is simply incredible, and I think this has never happened before. It is probably much more important than my or our legal work is, because it is basically the international public's pressure, which is going to make all the difference. Plus, the good forces out there, but they're in all of us, and that's why this is all happening. It is very hard for me to find the right words for my gratitude for these people. I'm getting these cards and letters, and many people write me that we started the Corona Investigative Committee on July the 10th of 2020. So I'm getting these cards and letters of people who are telling me, I knew something wasn't right. I had this hunch that there's something really, really wrong, but I wasn't able to pin this down. And when you started your work talking to all these experts, I was reassured that I wasn't crazy. And that's why these people seem to be grateful to me, because of this, many of them refused to get the shots, and even many of them managed to keep their families from getting the shots, which, as we now know, are as deadly as you said. Because the rat man, he was never interested, like the entire pharmaceutical industry. None of them were ever interested in our health. None of them make any sense. Most of the pharmaceutical products make no sense. Natural medicine, that's what makes sense. That's what's kept us alive and healthy over thousands of years. And many of us are returning to this. But that's part of the net result of what has been happening, that people are remembering, not learning, they're remembering what really makes sense, that the only real reality is nature. Nature is life. And anyone who violates the laws of nature will not survive. That's as clear as snow, as white snow.
Yeah. The videos, there are films. People are making films about you, Reiner. Prominent people from across the world, from every imaginable sector, are making videos, and tons of them, like 20, 30 people from every country. I mean, it's like with Julian Assange, who was arrested for possibly spying, was accused of that. Again, you're not even arrested on a level anywhere near that espionage. And, I forget his name. Help me, darling. Help me, Daisy. Vigiano, the cardinal, the popes, that one of the good people around the pope.
Vigano.
Vigano. Maria Vigano. Good
Vigano.
guy. Very good man.
And he's out there, he's calling your name and he's demanding your release. And there's so many great people across the world. It's just like, man, you have created something in people, Reiner. You are just making so many moves. And they tried to shut you down. They isolated you. They hoped that you would break. They tortured your wife as well with keeping her away from you. And yet here
Yeah.
you are, sir. Here you are. Dr. Reiner Fuellmich, you amazing man. What do you want to say to the people watching this?
Well, I think the most important message that I want to get across is, before this all happened, but after the evil people on the Corona Investigative Committee, the guys who are working for the deep state, after they had basically destroyed it, but before I was arrested, I had always told everyone that I do not crack under pressure. But that's because I felt that my father, who was a police officer in Bremen, and who had always told me and my sister, he gave both of us frequent tours of the city, of my hometown, Bremen. And there's this statue of the Knight of Roland in the middle of the marketplace. A knight carrying his sword and his shield, and then there's a crippled person beneath his feet, and he stands over him or her and protects her. And my father kept telling me, this is what it's all about. It's about justice. You have to be ready to stand up when the time comes, when there's someone who can't defend themselves. That's what you need to do. Justice is everything. Without justice, there cannot be peace and there cannot be freedom. And we are, this is the Bremen is called the Hanseatic, a free Hanseatic town of Bremen, because Bremen is one of the towns of the Hanseatic League, which is a large league that existed, trading league that existed in the 1600s or so. And this the statue faces a large church which is called the Dome in Bremen, and it doesn't. This is not a coincidence, because that's what my father said. He said, "Don't bow to anyone. Don't accept any medals from anyone. You are a free person. No one is above you. No one can give you a medal and pretend that he is above you and that you're deserving of this. Not even the church can tell you anything. If you don't believe in what they're trying to tell you, don't do it." And that's why I thought that I was tough enough for the job, but I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure. But now that I've been in prison for 2 years and 9 months and survived the really, really bad torture, I never broke down once. I never cried once. I'm sure I will over my mother when I get out, but not here, because you can't show any weaknesses in here. So I survived all this, and now I can seriously say I will never crack under any pressure. So that's the message I want to get across.
That's
Don't
amazing.
give up. Never, under any circumstances.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That is so, so powerful. While we have this opportunity, are there people out there that you want to connect to? How can we help you? You mentioned Dr. Mike Eden. We can connect with him. Name some names. I mean, all we need is a few more famous people to actually use their celebrity to build more of a focus on you. The more pressure people put on the establishment, the more they'll be forced to, respond and react and release you. So is there anybody that you would like us to help connect with?
Well, here's the problem. Over the past, I don't know, this has ended, but for a couple of months or so, there were a couple of people whose name I don't even know, who, on orders of the deep state, published hit pieces on me. Like, for example, claiming that I wasn't really an attorney, that I had never really tried any cases, that I was a member of Scientology or whatever, which all of this is a lie. And one of these guys was pretty effective, and even some of my friends were, let's say, confused for a while. But in the meantime, that has stopped. And but what I learned from this is that the case itself may be a bit complicated, and most people don't want to read 30 pages of this civil complaint, for example, or 166 pages of the criminal complaint which I wrote. So I have decided that I'm going to summarize this case on 1 or 2 pages, so that anyone who really wants to know what happened can read up on this, and if they want to go into the details, they can then read the civil complaint, which exists both in German and in English. But in the meantime, I am in touch with most of the people who I've always been in touch with. I mean, always meaning throughout Corona. Mike, I think our team is in touch with him, and I know that he's written some nice things about me. He's actually a friend, a real friend. We met in person when he was in Florida. He and his wife, great wife, Joanna. And yeah, but he's someone who I would definitely like to talk to. So if he wants to get in touch with me, all he has to do is download the form from the JVA Bremervoorde, the prison here in in Bremervoorde, and fill it in, just his name, his phone number, and my name, so that they know that he wants me to call him, and send it back to the JVA. But I'm in touch with pretty much everyone else, and there's more and more people who are writing to me, very interesting people. Some people are real whistleblowers from inside the deep state, and I'm getting all kinds of very, very important information that is useful for me, including for my case, but also for what we intend to do and what we've been working for very hard over the past, let's say, 3 months or so, because we want to get a real Nuremberg 2.0 trial started based on the American grand jury investigation, because it has the advantage of the defendants and their lawyers not being present. This was basically invented. The American grand jury was invented for the fight against the mafia. So you don't. What you do is, unlike in a jury trial where you usually have 12 members of the jury, they decide on whether you're guilty or not. But in a grand jury proceeding, instead of a prosecutor deciding whether or not he's going to indict someone, a prosecutor presents all the evidence he has to a jury of, 24, 26 people. And then if they're convinced that this is good enough for an indictment, and that's what happens. That's what happens. And that's what we intend to do in this case of is crimes against humanity. If there ever have been crimes against humanity, that's what this is. The Corona pandemic, rat face, and all the others.
Exactly, the little rat man. The little rat man factory.
Yeah.
Shame I can't show you, darling.
Fauci, I don't know if Bill Gates and all the others, plus those who are behind them. But we want to use this as a kind of blueprint for thousands and thousands of cases to be filed all over the world against the perpetrators in the African countries, in France, in Germany, everywhere. So I did more than 400 interviews over the course of 3 years with really good people, real experts, real scientists. It was about real science, not scientism, as my friend Patrick Wood would say. And we want this evidence that we gather. We want it to be used as evidence in thousands and thousands of trials, both criminal and civil trials, because civil trials are much more effective than criminal trials. That's how we can get all the money that they stole from us over the years, over the centuries, basically. That's how we can get it back. That's how Bill Gates all of a sudden will own nothing and will not be happy.
Oh my God, that'll be a happy day on earth when that happens. That is one of the single most serial killers that ever walked the face of the earth. And how he's got away with everything that he's done is just beyond thinking, but brilliant. I want to show people your projects, your projects. Oh my goodness, the news network that Daisy hosts and runs for you so beautifully. I want to invite Daisy onto the screen if you're ready, Daisy. You're holding the fort there with the phone from the prison because we had some technical issues. And there she is, Daisy Papp, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful support to Reiner Fuellmich and Inka Fuellmich. You have done so much for these beautiful people that we love so much, and we just honor you, Daisy. You just such a mega person. You're such a mega person, isn't she, Reiner?
Absolutely. She was there when Inka was in very bad shape, and she stayed with her for 2 months. And she actually came to Bremervoorde and visited me here in prison. And I know she's just a very good person. She's one of those really good persons. And I will be most grateful, actually, to be able to interview her probably tomorrow or so that people will get to know her.
Absolutely. So beautiful. Yes, absolutely. All right, we're just going to share screen here, Raina. I know you can't see us, my love. Hopefully, they will at some point very soon allow you to Zoom with people again, basic human rights. So here we're looking at, well, Daisy, would you like to take us through what we're looking at here, please?
Yes, sure. Well, thank you very much for being here with you and helping you as much as I can. This is the ICIC.law website, the official website, and so you can read some information on there, and especially you can have a look at the videos. When in the top bar, Dani, when you have a look, there's an archive to the top left. There you go. There's an archive with a lot of videos and wonderful work that Reiner did over the years. That's an extensive list of interviews. I'm not sure if all the interviews are in the meantime updated and uploaded. I do not think so. Well, we will figure it out, and we're looking forward for the feedback if somebody thinks that all of the videos are uploaded. And when you go to the main page, yes, to the home page, there is also a possibility where people can support and they can put donations in there, because that's very important. One has no idea that it is very important, for example, that Reiner is able to call us today. That is also not free. So we appreciate every help, because that is very graciously appreciated.
It's so important. Reiner has had.
By the way,
yeah.
By the way, I just wanted to make one thing clear. What we're doing today, this interview, is absolutely legal, because we're talking, you and I, you, Daisy, and you, Dani, we're talking, and we're allowed, because both your phone numbers have been registered here at the prison, and I'm allowed to do what I'm doing, because just like the prosecution and the court can release press statements, I can do the same, and I can talk about my case, because pretrial detention is not designed to break a detainee's ability to defend himself. It is being used for that purpose in my particular case. Pretrial detention is the last line of defense, so to speak, because pretrial detention is really only meant to make sure that someone who is being accused of a crime actually stands trial. But it is not designed to destroy an inmate's ability to defend himself, which most prisoners probably don't even worry about. But I do, because I'm an attorney. I know how to defend myself. But I don't, here in this prison or in any other prison, I don't have access to the internet. I don't have access to my files. And even though I can call my attorneys, they cannot call me. So if something important comes up, there's no way for them to get in touch with me. So that's all a result of pretrial detention. But here at this prison, it should have been the same at the other prison, but that's a concentration camp. Here at this prison, I'm allowed to do this because it is in line with the law. No problem with that.
Excellent. Daisy, you went to see Inka. We just clicked on the YouTube channel there, and there's a video there that people please go. I'll put the details underneath. Go and see the interview that beautiful Daisy did with Inka Fuellmich and giving her thoughts. And how was it seeing Inka, your best friend? How was that time with her?
Well, it was wonderful, and we were able to get a lot of things and a lot of good things done. And so I would do it any time again, certainly.
You show that a stack of mail because Inca's getting mail as well, and people are sending donations to Inca as well. And how does it feel to be with her, seeing her unwrap all those letters?
Well, there's indeed a possibility through my foundation, the Mindset Evolution Foundation, that people can send mail to Inka and get in touch with her. And it's really heartwarming how many loving and lovely letters and postcards arrive, some with handmade artwork and drawings and crochet. It's really heartwarming. And it was an honor to deliver that mail to Inka. And she was stunned, of course, and very touched. It's beautiful.
It's so special. It's just so special because again, there's two people that have been together, a husband and a wife, at the end of the day, who have been brutally separated for years now. For what? Illegally, criminally, and that's why we'll never stop fighting for you, Reiner. And there are thousands and thousands of people out there. Your birthday was recently. Were you able to hear them singing happy birthday outside the prison for you?
I was. This is the first time. This is my third birthday in prison, and this is the first time I was at least able to hear some of the sounds. Not everything they said, but I heard some of the music even, and also some of the other prisoners who were closer to that side of the wall behind which they were. They told me about it later, and of course, what this does is it impresses not just the inmates, but it also impresses the correctional officers who cannot believe, they even told me so, who cannot believe how someone like me has been incarcerated for over 2 years and 9 months now. Because now they know that now that they've kept me in pretrial detention for so long, they know that their original bad feelings about why is this guy in prison here were absolutely correct, because that doesn't make any sense. The guy, just before I was sentenced to without having any record, no prior record, I was sentenced to 4 years and 2 months. Actually 3 years and 9 months, but the presiding judge then decided that he would not take 5 months out of my pretrial detention. He would not take that into account. So that comes on top of that. That was 3 years and 9 months plus 5 months, which is 4 years and 2 months. So this is totally insane, especially if you see the case of a colleague of the prosecutor who was the guy who was transferred from Hanover to Göttingen, who only a couple of months earlier was sentenced to 1 year and 8 months on probation for having raped his 7-year-old son over an extended period of time. 1 year and 8 months on probation. And I get 4 years and 2 months. No probation, of course.
It's just beyond. It's just so beyond. But again, it's so wonderful that we're using this time with you to highlight you again, share the internal workings, the legalities from your voice to everyone's ears, which is what we want, not second or third hand information. You're sitting there in a cell, a prison cell, 2 years, 9 months, and many days against all that is right and just in this world. And the fight on the outside is just right here. And I love that you've got some love in there, in that prison. When I came to visit you, obviously it was very restrictive. And I remember we stood up together and we walked to the vending machine. I mean, and it was a victory because we weren't stopped, because ordinarily you'd get stopped. But that day you said, I'm walking to the vending machine. And it was a small victory, right? Right. Well, I was like, yeah, fuckers, because, oh, it just gets you so in the goat. But yeah, it's just incredible. There is so much changing. I know I haven't seen you in person since January, but did you hear about me going to the court in Amsterdam?
Yes, of course. I
Yeah.
heard you doing that. I heard Zeba also did her thing there. There were many other people as well, but I was deeply impressed by all of your efforts to put this case into the limelight, more or less. And it is having an effect. Everything is always having an effect, even if it maybe takes a little bit of time. But it does impress these people. It doesn't leave them uninfluenced, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, attending that March 9th, 2026, the High Court in Amsterdam, I sat next to Andrew Bridgen, who you've also recently spoken to and met before, and there's videos of the two of you together. We sat next to each other in the front row. I was going to take someone out, Reiner. I was going to get a front row seat in that courtroom because it was packed and there were people upstairs as well. I sat with Fiona Rose Diamond, who's a British activist, and Dr. Sonia Latipova was sitting. We all had dinner with each other the night before. And Dr. Sonia Latipova, as you know, was senior trials scientist for Pfizer and had said, do not put these ingredients in a human body. And she was there to give evidence. There were 5 people, there should have been 6, 1 died of the COVID injuries, the Pfizer injuries. And there were 9 lawyers representing Bill Gates, Albert Bourla, and Mark Rutte. And Albert Bourla was former CEO of Pfizer, has since resigned, of course. That's what cowards do. And these asshat billionaires had 3 lawyers each. It was just absolutely shocking. And of course, they behaved like where nothing. These people in court that were there, it was devastating. They stood up to leave. They basically said one word. One of the odd-looking people there in the lawyers said, we have nothing to say. So Peter Stassen presented the information in Dutch. Jamelia, you know Jamelia? Jamelia was upstairs translating. Fiona Rose Diamonds is typing on her laptop. I'm texting on my phone live to Facebook in the court. I mean, it's actually not allowed, but we were all there. It was amazing. Nobody stopped us. Oh, British press. It was so great and but shocking as well. And at the end, when the 9 lawyers all walked out behind each other, I was just so cross, me and my passion. And I stood up and I said, sit down, like that. They all kind of stood there because I interrupted the program, the reptilian frequency almost came apart. They kind of looked like, who is this silly cow, but oh, I was so mad. And then I went to the it gets worse. And then anyway, they walked out. And then I walked over to Peter Stassen, who was the beautiful lawyer, the advocate, as they call them in Amsterdam. He was getting his bag together. He'd done a beautiful job representing. And you know what, Reiner? One of the lines he said at the end was, the people in this courtroom have to decide whether you are a child of God or a child of the devil. And he spoke over and over about how satanic the whole system is. History was made that day. Also, Reiner, because now people can see that you can take, even if they put 3 lawyers each in front of them, the genociding cowards, they still had to answer. Somebody had to represent them. History changed, and now we're seeing Fauci, the little rat man, in the seat, in the hot seat, and they're all going to come. Now they need another sacrificial lamb. I'm sure it will be him. It looked like it's happening, my darling. It's happening, and you're getting out of prison, and you're going to wipe the floor with all of them, aren't you, my love?
Dawson is a great guy and a very good lawyer. He's a good friend, by the way. He's visited me, and I've been in touch with him.
Oh, I love him.
And he will probably be one of the attorneys on our panel when we do this Nuremberg 2.0 thing. He is special in that he is one of the very, very, very few lawyers who is unafraid. There's no one in Germany. Well, yes, there's one. My attorney, Alexandra Decker, she is totally unafraid. And I am unafraid too. But all of the other lawyers are afraid to call a spade and to stand up to the government. Because what good does it do a client, for example, those more than 1,000 doctors, German doctors, who were put on trial and either lost their licenses to practice medicine or were incarcerated? What good does it if you talk about the fake cases that they're bringing against them, and if you don't talk about what this is really about, a political persecution? Now, I'm very lucky in that sense because of the fact that I was abducted, and this is for political persecution, and this is in violation of Article 16. It is very easy for me to plead political persecution. It is them. Their lawyers could have tried, and many of them were in prison for, 2 years or almost 3 years. There's this one woman, Dr. Bianca Vice, who just got out after 2.5 years or so. But they also demonetized her, just like they're doing with everyone, to make these people, to make us into examples so that others will not do the same. Well, I advise you, do the same. Stand up and don't follow their orders, because there's this German pastor who, at the end of World War II, I think he came up with this little poem, and he said, most of you probably know it, and he said, well, when they came for the Jews, I didn't do anything because I'm not Jewish. Then they came for the Catholics. Well, I didn't do anything because I'm not Catholic. They came for the unions, for the unionists, and I didn't do anything because I'm not in the union. When they came for me, there was no one to stand up for me. And that's what's going to happen. Don't wait. Stand up. Fight for your rights. Get together with all the others. This is the time to fight. This is the right time now.
That's so well said. And, I said on my channel the other day that, where people are all ignoring, very similar to what you've just said there, we're all ignoring. And then all of a sudden there was a group of people that had to wear a yellow star. And then we saw them walking onto trains. And then we saw them walking into concentration camps. And then we never saw them walk out again. And this is where we're at. And it's every single person.
Yeah.
No one is now unaffected by the beast system that has been running and what they want to do and what they're trying to do, and incarcerating beautiful, strong people like you with your skills, because you're a strong international lawyer, because you are a lion, a kind of an archangel, anything that people want to call you. And people have called you beautiful, beautiful names, as somebody who they admire so strongly and stand behind and stand with. So, well, we've been going nearly 2 hours, my love. So let's bring this to a close. Let me just ask you a final message for the people, and also to let some know that they can actually apply to come and speak with you, visit you in prison. So give us the kind of rundown on that and your final message.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think I will be here much longer, so don't bother visiting me. I know this is risky what I'm saying, but I'm so sure of our case here that I do think that over the next 10 to 14 days, things will definitely change, not just for myself, but for this country as well. But the most important piece of advice is, of course, as always, never give up. And, this is a special greeting to my very good friend Vera Sharav. She's a survivor of the Holocaust. I think she was 8 years old when the war ended. And she's not just a survivor, but she's also an activist. So she never gave up. She just published a book, a summary of which she sent to a French supporter whose last name I don't even know. His first name is Luc. And he forwarded it to me. It's a 1 or 2 page summary of what happened during the pandemic. It is a perfect rundown. It's a perfect summary of her book, and it tells you that never again is now. That is what she's always been saying. Never again. Well, it is now, and now is the time to stand up, and that's the best piece of advice I can give anyone. Don't ever give up fighting until this war is won, and it is almost won now.
That is right. That is so right. Well, Dr. Reiner Fuellmich, I am so honored. As I said, you are in a prison cell talking to us here on my beautiful channel. And this is going to go far and wide. And I invite people to share, share, share. Be part of your own freedom. Be part of the freedom of Dr. Reiner Fuellmich. And Daisy Papp in the background there, my love. Thank you so much for holding space. Thank you, darling. Thank you for being such a great friend to Dr. Reiner and darling Inka, and going down to see her and checking on the dogs, Jimbo and Annie. How are they doing?
You're asking me, or you're
Yeah,
asking
I'm
me?
asking you.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, they are lovely. They are my furry friends, and and I brought them special goodies, and they were very, very happy. And I was allowed to give it to them because, of course, I asked Inka, is it a good time? Can they have a goodie now? And she said, yes, but don't spoil them too much. But they are lovely. They are lovely. They're beautiful souls. Extraordinary.
I know, Reiner, one of the things you most look forward to, I said to you, what do you miss the most? And without even breathing, you said, my wife, and obviously getting home to your dogs is going to be so beautiful too, isn't it?
Of course. I love these dogs. They're a mix of husky and Akita. And Akita is a Japanese snow dog. These guys, they're twins actually from the same litter. He is very big, and he's a very protective dog. And she's half his size. Very, very cute. She loves everyone. She's friendly with everyone. Of course, I miss them both because the big guy, he doesn't know that he's so big. He's I don't know, 54 kilos or so. Big dog. Right when he had reached his size and his weight, but was still a puppy, I was running with him, and all of a sudden he turned around and he thought he was still a puppy and jumped straight into my arms. That was the weirdest and the cutest thing I've ever experienced. Yes, I do miss my dog. Yes.
Bless your heart. I did actually forget to ask you, my love. Are you getting any exercise? Are you playing badminton? Do they let you read books now? You weren't even allowed books or anything in the cell. Like, just give us a quick brief on that, please.
I'm doing as much sports as I can. Yes, I do play badminton once a week. I play. I'm in a special group that plays table tennis. I also play volleyball. I do everything I can to stay in shape, and I think you will soon see a testimony to this. That I, physically at least, I am in pretty good shape. Under the circumstances, I'm in excellent shape. But I will need to do some stuff in order to really get back into shape. For example, because I can't run here, I used to run with my dogs every morning. So I can't do that here. But I'm under the circumstances, I'm in pretty good shape, I think.
That is so wonderful to hear. Well, once again, thank you so much, Dr. Reiner Fuellmich, for honoring me with your time. I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. And we will do all we can just to keep on raising the light and focusing everything on you and your freedom. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dani. I'm especially grateful to you because it's always fun to talk to you. I remember that, to me, very important interview you did with me and Dr. Lee Merritt and Dr. Christian Northrup That was a great, another great interview. I always love this. I enjoy this, and I love you both too, Daisy and Dani.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow, wonderful. Oh, and to the audience watching, go ahead, look at the information that's underneath the video. Go look up ICIC, go look up the Reiner Fuellmich News Network, please. There is a Facebook group out there. There is a Telegram group out there. You can come to me. I can pass, messages on. Just let's all support this beautiful man, Dr. Reiner Fuellmich. Until next time, I send you love from my heart to yours, and I'll see you soon.